There is a strange paradox in the human soul. The very people who see the world more clearly are often the ones who feel the most lost inside it, because intelligence is not only the ability to solve problems. It is also the burden of seeing truths others ignore. The average person moves through life like a traveler on a straight road. The path is simple: study, work, success, comfort. But the intelligent mind does not see a straight road. It sees 1,000 roads. It sees contradictions in society, hidden motives in people, and unanswered questions about life itself. And when the mind becomes aware of too many possibilities, certainty disappears. That is why many smart people feel lost. Not because they are weak, but because they are awake. They question everything: their purpose, their identity, even the values the world tells them to follow. And when you question everything, the old maps stop working. But here lies the deeper truth. Feeling lost is not a failure of the mind. It is the beginning of psychological awakening. A person who never feels lost is usually a person who never truly searched. The mind that struggles, doubts, and wanders through confusion is often the mind that is preparing for transformation. You see, the intelligent individual must eventually do something the ordinary person rarely does. They must create their own path, and that process is painful. It means facing your fears, confronting your inner darkness, and discovering parts of yourself that society taught you to hide. But within that darkness lies something powerful: your true self. When you stop trying to fit into the world's expectations and start listening to the quiet voice within, the confusion slowly becomes clarity. The lost traveler becomes the creator of the map. So if you feel lost today, do not panic. Do not believe the lie that you are behind in life. Sometimes the soul must wander in darkness before it discovers its real direction, and the very mind that makes you feel different today may be the same mind that will build a life no one else could imagine. Your confusion is not your weakness. It is the birthplace of your purpose. There comes a moment in the life of a deeply thinking person when awareness becomes both a gift and a burden. The more conscious a person becomes, the more they begin to notice the hidden layers of reality. They start to see contradictions in society, unspoken tensions in relationships, and motives behind actions that most people never question. What once appeared simple suddenly becomes complex. What once seemed certain begins to reveal cracks of doubt. A person with a sharp and reflective mind cannot easily accept the surface of things. They naturally look beneath it. They ask questions others are too busy or too comfortable to ask. Why do people chase success yet feel empty? Why do many follow traditions they never truly examined? Why do people pretend to be happy while quietly carrying suffering inside? These questions do not arise from arrogance. They arise from awareness. But awareness carries a price. The moment you begin to see reality more clearly, the illusions that once gave comfort start to fade. The stories society teaches about success, identity, and happiness no longer feel entirely true, and when those old narratives lose their power, the mind enters a strange and uncomfortable territory. It becomes a place between certainty and confusion. The intelligent mind starts to feel a quiet inner conflict. One part of the self wants stability, belonging, and acceptance from the world, but another part demands truth, authenticity, and deeper understanding, and these two forces rarely live peacefully together. You may notice things about people that they themselves are not aware of. You may sense hypocrisy in systems everyone else accepts. You may feel that many conversations remain shallow, repeating the same predictable ideas again and again. This creates a subtle loneliness, not because you believe you are superior, but because your perception separates you from the comfortable simplicity others seem to live in. Carl Jung once suggested that increasing consciousness often brings psychological tension. The more aware we become of ourselves and the world, the more responsibility we carry for what we see. Ignorance allows people to move easily through life, but awareness forces us to confront complexity. The intelligent mind therefore lives with a constant dialogue inside itself. It observes the world, questions it, analyzes it, and sometimes even doubts its own conclusions. Thoughts multiply. Possibilities expand, certainty becomes harder to hold, and yet this inner conflict is not a weakness. It is the mind trying to grow beyond unconscious living. Conflict is often the birthplace of deeper understanding. Just as muscles grow through resistance, the psyche grows through tension. When awareness collides with reality, it forces a person to search for deeper truths about themselves and the world around them. In many ways, this inner struggle is the beginning of psychological maturity. It means the mind is no longer satisfied with borrowed beliefs or inherited values. It wants to discover something real, something personally meaningful, but the path toward that understanding is rarely comfortable. Awareness dismantles illusions before it builds wisdom, and that is why those who see more often feel more lost at first. They are not failing. They are simply standing at the edge of a deeper awakening. One of the quiet burdens of an intelligent mind is the ability to see far more possibilities than the average person. Where others see a single path, the reflective mind sees many, and at first, this seems like a gift. The world appears full of options, ideas, and directions. But over time, that abundance of possibilities can become overwhelming. Imagine standing at a crossroads with not one road, but 100. Each road promises a different life, a different future, a different version of who you might become. One path leads to stability and security, another leads to creativity and risk, another promises knowledge, while another promises adventure. And the more intelligent the mind, the more clearly it can imagine the consequences of each direction. This is where the struggle begins. The mind starts to analyze every option. It tries to predict outcomes, weigh risks, calculate meaning, and understand the deeper purpose behind each decision. Instead of simply choosing and moving forward, the intelligent person often becomes trapped in reflection. What if I choose the wrong path? What if there is a better one I cannot yet see? What if this decision defines the rest of my life? These questions are not signs of weakness. They are signs of a mind that is deeply aware of how complex life truly is. But the more possibilities the mind recognizes, the harder it becomes to commit to just one. While others move confidently along the most obvious route, the thoughtful individual often pauses, they observe, they compare, they imagine alternate realities, they wonder who they might become under different circumstances, and slowly, this ability to see many futures can create paralysis. It becomes difficult to feel satisfied with any single decision because the mind remains aware of all the other lives that could have been lived. Even after making a choice, a quiet voice inside may whisper about the paths left unexplored. Fear creates a strange psychological tension. On the outside, the person may appear indecisive, but internally, they are navigating a complex landscape of possibilities that most people never even notice. The intelligent mind also understands something unsettling. Every choice is also a sacrifice. To choose one direction means closing the door on countless others. To pursue one dream means letting many others fade away. And for someone who sees potential everywhere, this can feel like losing entire worlds. Yet this struggle contains an important lesson. Life cannot be lived in infinite directions. No human being can experience every possibility. At some point, the mind must accept that meaning is not found by exploring every road, but by walking deeply on one. True fulfillment does not come from having endless options. It comes from committing to a path and discovering what lies within it. The intelligent person must therefore learn a difficult truth. Clarity rarely comes before action. Often, clarity only appears after you begin moving. When you stop trying to calculate every possible future and start living one of them, the fog slowly begins to lift. The path becomes clearer not because it was perfect, but because you chose to walk it. And sometimes, the reason smart people feel lost is not because they lack direction. It is because they can see too many directions at once. There is a moment in the life of a thoughtful person when the world no longer feels as simple as it once did. The rules, traditions, and expectations that society presents as unquestionable truths begin to appear less solid. What once seemed normal now invites deeper scrutiny. And slowly, the mind begins to ask questions that many people prefer not to ask. Why do people measure success only through money or status? Why do individuals follow traditions they never truly examined? Why does society reward conformity more than authenticity? These questions arise naturally within an intelligent mind, not because it seeks rebellion, but because it seeks understanding. A reflective person cannot easily accept ideas simply because they have been repeated for generations. They want to know why those ideas exist and whether they still hold meaning in the present moment. But this process of questioning can be deeply unsettling. Society is built on shared beliefs. These beliefs create order, stability, and predictability. Most people move through life relying on these collective agreements. They go to school, follow established career paths, adopt familiar social roles, and pursue the definitions of success that society has already constructed. For many, this system works well enough. It offers direction and structure, but the questioning mind begins to notice something different. It observes how people often follow these patterns without reflection. It sees individuals chasing goals they never personally chose. It recognizes how fear of rejection or judgment can keep people trapped in roles that do not truly express who they are. This awareness creates a quiet distance between the thinker and the crowd. The intelligent individual may start to feel like an outsider, not because they wish to separate themselves, but because their perception no longer fits easily within the collective mindset. Conversations may feel repetitive, focused on superficial achievements rather than deeper meaning. Social expectations may appear like invisible rules that everyone follows but rarely examines. And so the mind continues to question, why must life follow this exact pattern? Why is individuality often discouraged? Why do so many people sacrifice their inner truth to gain approval? These questions can lead to inner conflict. On one hand, every human being desires belonging. We want to feel accepted and understood by those around us. But on the other hand, the mind that sees clearly cannot pretend that everything makes sense when it does. This tension can make a person feel lost. They may no longer feel fully aligned with the values of the world around them, yet they have not fully discovered their own path either. They stand somewhere between conformity and authenticity, trying to understand where they truly belong. But questioning society is not a flaw of intelligence. It is one of its most important responsibilities. Progress in human history has always begun with individuals who dared to question the norms of their time. Every transformation in culture, science, philosophy, and psychology started with someone asking a simple but powerful question: is there another way to see this? The purpose of questioning is not to reject society entirely. Rather, it is to examine which values are meaningful and which are merely inherited habits. Through this process, the individual begins to shape their own philosophy of life. They stop living purely by borrowed beliefs and start constructing principles that align with their inner truth. This journey can feel lonely at times. The path of independent thinking often separates a person from the comfort of the crowd, but it also leads to something far more valuable: authenticity. When a person has the courage to question what the world assumes to be normal, they begin the process of discovering who they truly are beyond expectations. And sometimes the reason smart people feel lost is not because they lack direction, it is because they are no longer willing to follow directions that were never truly theirs. There comes a stage in the life of a deeply reflective person when ordinary questions are no longer enough. The mind begins to wander beyond daily routines and practical concerns, drifting into the vast and mysterious territory of existence itself. Simple thoughts evolve into profound inquiries. Why am I here? What is the purpose of all this effort? What does it truly mean to live a meaningful life? For many people, these questions appear briefly and then fade away beneath the noise of everyday responsibilities. Work, family, entertainment, and social expectations provide enough distraction to keep the deeper mysteries of life comfortably hidden in the background, but the intelligent and introspective mind does not easily forget these questions. Instead, it returns to them again and again. Late at night, when the world grows quiet, the mind begins its silent dialogue. It examines the nature of happiness, success, identity, and mortality. It observes how people spend their lives chasing goals, building careers, accumulating possessions, and yet many still seem restless or dissatisfied. This observation leads to an unsettling realization. Perhaps the things society calls success are not always the same things that give life genuine meaning. Once this thought takes root, the mind becomes even more curious. It begins to analyze every decision through the lens of purpose. Is this career truly meaningful, or is it simply expected of me? Do these relationships reflect who I truly am, or are they shaped by social convenience? Am I living according to my authentic values, or am I unconsciously following patterns I inherited from others? The more the mind searches for answers, the more complex the questions become. The intelligent individual may find themselves examining philosophy, psychology, spirituality, and personal identity, hoping to uncover some deeper truth about existence. They explore ideas about consciousness, human nature, and the structure of reality itself, and yet, despite all this thinking, clear answers rarely arrive. Instead, the search often creates a strange psychological loop. The mind analyzes life so intensely that it becomes difficult to simply live it. Moments that might otherwise be enjoyed become subjects of reflection. Experiences are examined, interpreted, and evaluated rather than fully felt. Over time, this constant analysis can create a feeling of being mentally trapped, while others appear to move forward with confidence. The overthinking mind stands still, caught between possibilities and interpretations. Every decision carries philosophical weight. Every path invites questions about whether it aligns with one's deeper purpose. This can make life feel heavier than it actually is. The paradox is that the very intelligence that allows someone to explore life's deepest questions can also prevent them from experiencing its simplest joys. The mind becomes so focused on understanding the meaning of life that it forgets that meaning is often discovered through living rather than thinking. Human existence was never designed to be solved like a mathematical equation. Some truths reveal themselves only through action, experience, and emotional engagement with the world. Meaning often grows slowly through relationships, challenges, creativity, and personal growth, not through endless analysis alone. The thoughtful person must eventually learn a quiet but powerful lesson. Life does not always provide clear answers before we begin the journey. Sometimes we must move forward despite uncertainty, allowing meaning to emerge gradually along the way. Overthinking the meaning of life is therefore not a sign of weakness or confusion. It is evidence of a mind that refuses to live unconsciously. It reflects a deep desire to understand existence rather than merely pass through it, but wisdom lies in balancing reflection with experience. To think deeply about life is valuable. To fully live it is essential, and often the reason intelligent people feel lost is not because life lacks meaning. It is because they are searching for it too intensely inside their thoughts, instead of allowing it to unfold through the experience of living. As the mind grows more reflective and aware, a subtle distance can begin to form between the individual and the people around them. It is not always a visible separation. Often it exists quietly beneath the surface of everyday interactions, like an invisible wall that is difficult to explain but deeply felt. A thoughtful person may find themselves surrounded by others, friends, family, colleagues, yet still experience a strange sense of psychological loneliness. Conversations happen, laughter is shared, routines continue, but somewhere inside there remains the feeling that very few people truly understand the depth of what is happening within their mind. This isolation does not usually come from arrogance or a belief in superiority. In fact, many intelligent individuals long for genuine connection. They wish to share ideas, explore meaningful discussions, and feel understood on a deeper level. But their inner world often moves in a direction that many people rarely travel. While others may focus on everyday topics, daily events, entertainment, social gossip, or routine ambitions, the reflective mind tends to drift toward deeper questions. It wonders about human nature, personal identity, morality, meaning, and the unseen psychological forces that shape behavior. Over time, this difference in focus can make ordinary conversations feel limited or repetitive. The intelligent person may listen politely, participate when necessary, but inside they may feel as if their true thoughts remain unspoken. There are moments when they want to ask questions that go beyond the surface. Questions about fear, purpose, neither struggles in the hidden conflicts people carry inside themselves, but they quickly sense that such topics might make others uncomfortable or confused. So they remain silent, keeping much of their inner dialogue to themselves, and slowly this habit creates a deeper sense of separation. The individual learns to navigate two different worlds. One is the external world where they interact normally with others, fulfilling social expectations and roles. The other is an internal landscape filled with complex reflections, ideas, and observations that rarely find expression. This inner world becomes both a refuge and a prison. On one hand, it offers intellectual richness and deep self-awareness. The person develops a profound understanding of themselves and the psychological patterns around them. But on the other hand, it can make it difficult to feel fully connected with those who do not share the same level of introspection. Sometimes the individual even begins to wonder if something is wrong with them. Why do others seem so comfortable in social environments that feel mentally exhausting to me? Why do simple conversations feel empty when I crave depth and authenticity? But the truth is that this experience is a natural consequence of heightened awareness. When a person observes life with greater psychological depth, they begin to see patterns and contradictions that others may not notice. They recognize hidden motives behind behavior, subtle emotional tensions in relationships, and unspoken fears that influence human decisions. This perception changes the way they experience the world. However, isolation does not have to become permanent loneliness. In fact, many intelligent individuals eventually discover that meaningful connection is still possible. It simply requires finding people who are willing to explore deeper conversations and authentic experience. Such connections may be fewer in number, but they are far more powerful. A single relationship built on genuine understanding can feel more fulfilling than dozens of superficial interactions. And perhaps the most important realization is this: being different in the way you think does not mean you are meant to walk through life completely alone. Sometimes, the sense of isolation is not a sign that you do not belong. It is simply a sign that you are searching for a deeper level of belonging than the world usually offers on the surface. There are moments in a person's life when confusion, doubt, and emotional struggle begin to feel overwhelming. The mind feels scattered, the future uncertain, and the identity that once seemed stable begins to shift. To many people, this state feels like failure or weakness. They believe something has gone wrong in their life, that they have somehow lost their direction, but in reality, this period often marks the beginning of something far more important: inner transformation. Transformation rarely begins in comfort. It usually begins in disruption. The beliefs that once guided you start to feel incomplete. The identity you once carried no longer fits as naturally as it once did. The goals that once seemed meaningful begin to lose their emotional power. At first, this can create a deep sense of disorientation. You may wonder why the things that once motivated you now feel empty. You may feel disconnected from the version of yourself that once felt certain about life. The person you used to be slowly fades, but the person you are becoming has not yet fully emerged. This is the space between identities. Psychologically, it is one of the most challenging phases a human being can experience. The mind struggles to hold on to something familiar, yet the deeper self quietly pushes toward growth and change. During this process, A person often begins to confront parts of themselves that were previously ignored or hidden. Old fears, insecurities, regrets, and suppressed emotions rise to the surface. These aspects of the psyche can feel uncomfortable, even frightening, but they are not appearing to destroy you. They are appearing so they can finally be understood. Many people spend their entire lives avoiding these inner confrontations. They distract themselves with routines, external achievements, or constant activity in order to keep uncomfortable thoughts buried beneath the surface. But the reflective and intelligent mind eventually reaches a point where avoidance is no longer possible. The psyche demands honesty. It asks you to look inward and examine the parts of yourself that have remained unconscious for years. This process can feel like walking through darkness. You may question your identity, your past decisions, and even the values that once defined your life. You may feel temporarily lost, unsure of who you are or where you are going. Yet beneath this confusion, something powerful is taking place. The mind is reorganizing itself. The old structures of belief and identity are dissolving so that something more authentic can take their place. The individual is slowly moving from an unconscious life toward a conscious one. Transformation is rarely quick or comfortable. It unfolds gradually, often through periods of struggle, reflection, and emotional challenge. But each moment of honest self-examination brings a deeper understanding of who you truly are. Over time, clarity begins to appear. The individual starts to recognize their authentic values, their unique strengths, and the deeper motivations that drive their actions. Instead of living according to expectations imposed by others, they begin shaping a life that aligns with their inner truth. What once felt like chaos slowly becomes a process of growth. The person who emerges from this transformation is not the same person who entered it. They carry greater self-awareness, emotional depth, and psychological strength. They understand themselves more clearly than before. And perhaps most importantly, they no longer need to pretend to be someone they are not. This is why periods of feeling lost should not always be feared. Sometimes they are the psyche's way of breaking old patterns so that a more authentic self can be born. Inner transformation often disguises itself as confusion. But within that confusion lies the quiet beginning of a new identity, one that is shaped not by fear, expectations, or unconscious habits, but by conscious understanding and personal truth. There comes a moment in the journey of a thoughtful and self-aware person when they realize that the paths laid out by society no longer feel entirely their own. For years, many people walk along roads that were designed long before they were born, roads shaped by tradition, culture, family expectations, and social definitions of success. These paths promise security and approval, and for many individuals they provide a sense of stability, but the reflective mind eventually begins to feel something deeper, a quiet resistance. It begins to sense that following a path simply because it is familiar does not guarantee fulfillment. The intelligent individual starts to question whether the life they are building truly belongs to them, or whether it is merely a continuation of patterns they inherited without conscious choice. This realization can be both liberating and frightening. On one hand, it opens the possibility of creating a life that reflects one's authentic values, passions, and inner truth. On the other hand, it removes the comfort of clear instructions. The moment you step away from predefined expectations, the irresponsibility of shaping your own direction suddenly falls entirely on you, and responsibility can feel heavy. When you create your own path, there is no universal blueprint to follow. There are no guaranteed outcomes or clear assurances that every decision will lead to success. You must rely on your own judgment, your own intuition, and your willingness to learn through experience. For many intelligent individuals, this stage of life can feel deeply uncertain. They may hesitate, wondering if they are making the right choices. They may compare themselves to others who appear to be progressing smoothly along traditional routes, careers, achievements, social milestones, and question whether their unconventional journey is a mistake. But comparison often hides an important truth. Those who follow established paths benefit from a map that society has already drawn. The expectations are clear, and the rewards are widely recognized. Yet those who choose to create their own path are explorers. They are stepping into territory that has not yet been fully defined. Exploration always involves uncertainty. It requires courage to move forward without constant validation from the outside world. It requires patience to accept that progress may not always appear immediate or obvious. And it requires resilience to continue even when others misunderstand or question your direction. But within this process lies one of the most powerful forms of personal growth. When you build your own path, every step becomes meaningful because it reflects a conscious decision. Your choices are not simply reactions to external pressure, they are expressions of your identity, your curiosity, and your desire to live authentically. Over time, something remarkable begins to happen. The uncertainty that once felt overwhelming slowly transforms into clarity. As you continue walking your chosen path, you start to understand yourself more deeply. You discover what truly motivates you, what values guide your decisions, and what kind of life feels genuinely fulfilling. Instead of living according to borrowed expectations, you begin to shape a life that reflects your unique perspective and potential. And perhaps most importantly, you develop a quiet confidence that cannot easily be shaken by outside opinions. This confidence does not come from knowing every answer. It comes from trusting your ability to learn, adapt, and grow as you move forward. Creating your own path does not mean rejecting society or isolating yourself from the world. Rather, it means participating in life with awareness and intention. It means choosing directions that align with your inner truth instead of blindly following what others consider normal. This journey is rarely simple, and it often requires facing moments of doubt and uncertainty, yet it also leads to a deeper sense of freedom. Because when you walk a path you have consciously created, every step becomes part of a story that truly belongs to you. And in the end, the reason many intelligent people feel lost is not because they lack ability or direction. It is because they are standing at the edge of something powerful, the moment where they stop following paths that were given to them and begin creating one that has never existed before. And so, when we look at the lives of intelligent and deeply reflective people, we begin to understand that feeling lost is not a sign of failure. It is often the natural consequence of awareness, curiosity, and the courage to question what others accept without thought. The intelligent mind sees more, questions more, and feels more. It recognizes the complexity of life, the contradictions within society, and the endless possibilities that exist before every decision. Because of this, the journey toward clarity can appear slower and more uncertain. But this uncertainty is not meaningless. Every moment of doubt forces deeper reflection. Every question pushes the mind beyond inherited beliefs. Every period of isolation strengthens the relationship between the individual and their true inner self. What may appear from the outside as confusion is often, in reality, a powerful psychological process unfolding beneath the surface. It is the mind searching for authenticity. The world often celebrates those who move quickly and confidently along familiar paths, but history, growth, and transformation have always been shaped by individuals who paused, questioned, and dared to look deeper. The intelligent person must therefore learn an important truth. Feeling lost is not the end of the journey, it is often the beginning of self-discovery. Within confusion lies the opportunity to examine your beliefs. Within isolation lies the opportunity to understand yourself. Within uncertainty lies the possibility of creating a life that truly belongs to you. The path may not always be clear, and the answers may not arrive immediately, but every step taken with awareness brings you closer to understanding who you truly are. And when that understanding finally emerges, the person who once felt lost often becomes the one who walks through life with the greatest clarity, because they did not simply inherit a direction, they discovered it within themselves.